Her voice hit the microphones like a slap. "This is ridiculous," the woman in the crisp white blazer said, eyes locked on the bench. "I don't know why we're wasting time. The rules are clear. Even you can understand that." The courtroom didn't gasp loudly. It didn't need to. The air changed anyway, like every person in the room felt the same silent thought. She just said that to Judge Judy. Judge Judy Shineland didn't flinch. She didn't lean back. She didn't raise her voice. She just stared at the plaintiff long enough for the woman's smirk to wobble at the edges. "State your name," Judge Judy said. "Brenda Carlisle," the woman answered, chin up. "President of the Cedar Grove Estates Homeowners Association." Across from her sat the defendant, Jonah Kim, early 30s, tired eyes, sleeves rolled up like he'd come from a hospital waiting room. He kept one hand on the handle of his daughter's wheelchair. Lily, 8 years old, small frame, pink headband, feet tucked under a blanket. She watched the judge with quiet curiosity, then glanced at Brenda with a look that didn't understand cruelty, only sensed it. Judge Judy looked at the paperwork. "Miss Carlisle, you're suing Mr. Kim for $18,000. "Yes," Brenda said, crisp and fast. "He installed an unauthorized wheelchair lift on the front of his home, plus other modifications. It violates our CC&Rs. It's an eyesore. It lowers property values, and he refuses to remove it." Judge Judy's eyebrow lifted. "Other modifications?" Brenda's lips pressed. "A ramp, a mechanical lift, and a swing in the front yard." Jonah's jaw tightened. "It's a therapy swing." Brenda snapped her head toward him. "Don't talk over me." Judge Judy's voice cut through like a blade. "He can speak when I allow him to, and you will not speak to him like you're his supervisor." Brenda looked back at the bench, offended. "I'm just trying to keep this orderly." Judge Judy leaned forward slightly. "You called me stupid 10 seconds ago. You're not here to keep anything orderly." Brenda blinked, then attempted a laugh. "I didn't call you stupid. I implied that HOA rules are simple." Judge Judy stared. "That's not better." Brenda's smile tightened. "Fine, can we proceed?" Judge Judy picked up her glasses and placed them on slowly, deliberately. "We are proceeding, but we're going to proceed with facts, not your attitude." She looked down again. "Mr. Kim, you're being fined monthly." Jonah nodded. "Yes," Judge Judy read. $700 a month plus late penalties. Total current fines, $4,620. Brenda jumped in. "And that's generous. We could have levied more." Judge Judy didn't look at her. "Miss Carlisle, do you have the exact bylaw that bans a wheelchair lift?" Brenda opened her binder and flipped pages with a flourish, like she'd been waiting to perform. "Exterior modifications require architectural approval." Judge Judy held her gaze. "That's not what I asked you. I asked, where does it say a wheelchair lift is prohibited?" Brenda's page flipping slowed. "It's implied." Judge Judy's tone sharpened. "The law doesn't run on vibes, Miss Carlisle. Show me the rule." Brenda's cheeks flushed. "Your Honor, with respect, you're getting stuck in technicalities. The HOA has broad authority. We're a private community." Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. "You know what I'm stuck on? The idea that you think you can bully a family because you don't like how something looks." Brenda leaned forward. "It's not bullying. He bought into the rules. He thinks his situation makes him special." Jonah's hand tightened on Lily's chair handle. Judge Judy glanced at Lily just once, then back to Brenda. "Let's talk about his situation. What is it?" Brenda shrugged. "She's disabled." "I'm sorry, but..." Judge Judy snapped. "Stop. Don't but a child in a wheelchair." Brenda's face hardened. "I'm not heartless. I offered alternatives." Judge Judy's voice went low. "What alternatives?" Brenda lifted a finger, counting. "He could use the garage entrance, or he could request temporary use of the back patio, or he could have the lift installed in the rear, where it's not visible from the street, or, frankly, he could move to a home that suits their needs." That last sentence landed like a stone. Jonah's eyes went wide with anger, but he didn't speak. Lily's gaze dropped to her blanket. Judge Judy's expression didn't change, but the room felt colder. You told them to move? Brenda shrugged, as if it were reasonable advice. It's a luxury community. People pay for standards. Judge Judy looked at the file again. Mr. Kim, did you request approval? Brenda answered instantly. No, Jonah said at the same time, yes. Judge Judy's head tilted. I'm going to ask again, and I'm going to get one answer at a time. Mr. Kim, did you request approval? Jonah nodded. I emailed the HOA Architectural Committee twice. I attached Lily's doctor letter. I asked for an emergency review because she fell trying to use the steps. Brenda scoffed. He sent an email. That's not an application. Judge Judy looked at Jonah's attorney, Ms. Ellis. Do you have that email? Ms. Ellis stood calm. Yes, Your Honor. She handed it to the bailiff, who delivered it to the bench. Judge Judy read silently for a moment. Then she looked up double quotes, Miss Carlyle. She said, tapping the paper, this email is titled Reasonable Accommodation Request Medical Urgency. It includes measurements, photos, and a physician's note. He asked for a hearing within 10 days. Brenda's face tightened, and he didn't follow the form. Judge Judy raised the paper slightly. Your response is one sentence? Denied, not our responsibility. Remove the structure or fines will escalate. Brenda's mouth opened. Because Judge Judy cut in. Because you didn't want it. Brenda snapped. Because rules matter. Judge Judy leaned forward. Rules matter. Laws matter more. And federal housing law is not optional because you're wearing an HOA badge. Brenda's eyes flicked away, then back, trying to stay defiant. You're making this emotional. Judge Judy's voice sharpened. No, you made it personal. You said a disabled child should move because your neighborhood has standards. Brenda's voice rose. I didn't say that. Jonah finally spoke, controlled but shaking. You said it in the meeting too. Brenda whipped toward him. Don't lie. Judge Judy's hand lifted. Enough. Ms. Ellis spoke. Your Honor, we have a recording of that meeting. Brenda froze. Her throat visibly worked as she swallowed. Judge Judy's gaze locked on Brenda like a clamp. A recording? Ms. Ellis nodded. Yes, taken by another resident during the HOA hearing. Ms. Carlyle didn't know it was being recorded. Brenda's eyes widened with real fear now. That's not admissible. Judge Judy didn't even blink. Try me. The bailiff handed over a phone. Ms. Ellis cued the file. Judge Judy didn't press play yet. She looked at Brenda. Ms. Carlyle, before we listen, I have a question. Brenda's lips trembled, trying to hold her posture together. What? Judge Judy lifted a different document from her file 1 Brenda clearly hadn't noticed. Why? Judge Judy asked, voice calm but lethal. Did your HOA file a lien against Mr. Kim's home last week? Jonah's head snapped up. A lien? Miss Ellis stiffened. Your Honor, we only discovered it yesterday. Brenda's face went pale in a way no makeup could hide. Judge Judy held the paper up for the camera. Because this lien isn't just about fines. This lien is a threat. And threats are how bullies operate. Brenda whispered, almost inaudible. It's standard procedure. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. Not at 4 months. Not with a disabled child in the home. Not when your denial may already violate the law. Then Judge Judy tapped the meeting recording on the phone, finger hovering over play. Miss Carlyle, she said softly, we're going to hear your words. And after that, we're going to talk about why you wanted this family pressured out of their home so badly. Brenda's breath caught as the audio began to load, because she already knew what the courtroom was about to hear. Asterisk. The speaker crackled once. Then a room tone came through echoing voices, folding chairs. The unmistakable sound of an HOA, meeting where people pretend they're civilized, while sharpening knives. Then Brenda's voice. Clear and confident. I'm not running a charity. If we let one person break the rules, the whole neighborhood turns into a circus. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Jonah stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. The recording continued. At another voice, Jonah's came through, calmer than it had any right to be. My daughter can't climb steps. She fell. We're asking for a temporary approval until a full review. Brenda's voice snapped back, sharp and dismissive. Then you should have thought of that before buying here. Lily shifted slightly in her chair. Miss Ellis reached down and adjusted the blanket. Gentle. Judge Judy didn't move. Her expression stayed controlled, but her eyes narrowed a fraction more with every sentence. The audio continued, and let me be very clear. Brenda said in the recording, if you don't remove it, we will fine you until you can't afford to stay. That's how compliance works. Ms. Ellis paused the audio. The courtroom was silent, stunned. Judge Judy leaned forward. That's your voice, Miss Carlyle. Brenda's face was flushed now, anger fighting panic. It's taken out of context. Judge Judy's tone was flat. I'd love to hear the context where we will fine you until you can't afford to stay becomes acceptable. Brenda's lips trembled. I meant it as procedural. We have enforcement mechanisms. Judge Judy stared. You meant it as pressure? Then she looked at the lien notice again. And you escalated to a lien? Brenda nodded quickly. That's standard. Judge Judy's voice sharpened. Not this fast. Not this aggressively. Not when the underlying conduct is a reasonable accommodation request. You are not enforcing rules. You are manufacturing desperation. Brenda snapped. No, I'm protecting the community from ugly modifications. Judge Judy glanced at the photo of the lift and ramp. It was neat, painted to match the house. A simple safety rail. Nothing crooked, nothing chaotic. Just accessibility. Judge Judy looked back at Brenda. This isn't ugly. It's functional. Brenda's nostrils flared. A luxury neighborhood has standards. Judge Judy's reply was immediate. Human beings are not aesthetic violations. Jonah swallowed hard, eyes glistening for half a second before he controlled it. Judge Judy turned to Jonah. Mr. Kim, tell me about the fall. Jonah hesitated like he didn't want to say it on camera. Then he did anyway, quiet, honest. It was after her physical therapy. She was tired. We tried the steps again because we didn't have the lift yet. She slipped. Her knee hit the edge. She screamed. She was terrified to try again. I carried her into the car and she kept saying, Daddy, don't make me do it. The gallery shifted, uncomfortable. Brenda rolled her eyes at the table, small, quick, but caught. Judge Judy saw it. Double quotes Miss Carlyle. Judge Judy said, did you just roll your eyes at a father describing his disabled child falling? Brenda's eyes widened. No, I didn't. Judge Judy's voice went low. You did. And you're not helping yourself. Brenda leaned forward, desperate to regain control. This is emotional manipulation. He's using the child to distract from the fact that he violated rules. If Judge Judy understood HO governance, Judge Judy cut her off. Do not say my name like it's a debate tactic. I understand enough to know you're overplaying your authority. Then Judge Judy looked to Miss Ellis. What was the HOA response when he requested accommodation? Miss Ellis handed up a printed chain. Your Honor, we have the denial. Then we have a second email where Mr. Kim asks for appeal. And Ms. Carlyle replies, appeals are for compliant residents. Brenda's face tightened. Because he ignored us. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. He ignored an unlawful denial. Brenda snapped, unlawful? We're private. Judge Judy leaned forward. Private does not mean above federal law. Then Miss Ellis spoke again. Your Honor, the HOA also sent a community notice about Mr. Kim. Brenda's head jerked up. That was informational. Ms. Ellis placed the printout on the bench. Judge Judy read aloud. Unit 22 has installed unauthorized equipment and has refused compliance. Residents are advised not to engage directly. Report any unsafe interactions to the HOA. Jonah's voice went tight. She made us sound dangerous. Judge Judy looked at Brenda. Why would you write unsafe interactions about a father and his disabled child? Brenda stammered. Because people were concerned. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. Or because you wanted isolation. Isolation is how pressure works. Brenda's attorney finally stood, voice careful. Your Honor, the HOA acted within its discretionary authority. Judge Judy cut him off. Sit. Your client just admitted she used fines to make them move. That's not discretion. That's coercion. The attorney sat. Judge Judy turned back to Brenda. Now, let's discuss the numbers. You want $18,000. Break it down. Brenda snapped back into business mode. Removal cost estimate, $8,000. Legal fees, $6,000. Diminished value, $4,000. Judge Judy raised an eyebrow. Removal estimate from who? Brenda lifted her chin. From Cedar Compliance Services. Judge Judy paused. Just a beat. Cedar Compliance Services. Brenda nodded. Our vendor. Judge Judy looked down at her notes, then back up. And who owns Cedar Compliance Services, Miss Carlisle? Brenda blinked. It's a vendor. Judge Judy's voice sharpened. Who owns it? Brenda's cheeks flushed. I don't know. Judge Judy's stare was unblinking. You don't know who owns the company you want this family to pay $8,000 to. Brenda's voice cracked. It's not relevant. Judge Judy leaned forward. It becomes very relevant if you personally profit. Brenda's breathing became shallow. I don't profit. Ms. Ellis stood. Your Honor, we subpoenaed the vendor registration. Cedar Compliance Services is registered to a Brenda Carlisle at the HOA President's home address. The gallery murmured again. Jonah's eyes widened. Brenda's face turned pale. Judge Judy didn't look surprised. She looked disappointed, like she'd seen this exact scam wearing 100 different outfits. Miss Carlisle, Judge Judy said, voice quiet and deadly, you denied a disabled child an accommodation. Fined the family, filed a lien, threatened to price them out of their home, and then offered removal through your own company. Brenda shook her head rapidly. Nona Cedar Compliance is my husband's company, not mine. Judge Judy lifted an eyebrow. Oh, so you thought marriage was a legal invisibility cloak? Brenda's lips trembled. Judge Judy leaned back. I want to know how deep this goes. She turned to Ms. Ellis. Do we have the HOA financials? Ms. Ellis nodded. Yes, Your Honor, and we have a witness, the former treasurer, waiting outside. Brenda's eyes widened with real panic now. You can't bring random people, Judge Judy snapped. I can bring anyone who has relevant testimony. And based on what I'm seeing, your HOA finances are about to become very relevant. Then Judge Judy looked at the bailiff. Bring in the former treasurer. Brenda's hands gripped the table edge like she needed it to stay upright, because she knew what the treasurer knew, and she knew it wasn't just about a ramp anymore. Asterisk the former treasurer walked in like someone entering a room where she'd been burned before. Janine Walker, late 40s, plain cardigan, eyes sharp but tired, took the witness seat and didn't look at Brenda until Judge Judy asked her to. State your name. Judge Judy said. Janine Walker, she replied. Former treasurer of Cedar Grove Estates, HOA. Brenda tried to laugh, but it sounded strained. Janine resigned because she couldn't handle the workload. Janine's head turned slightly. I resigned because I wouldn't sign off on theft. The courtroom made a noise, quiet, collective shock. Judge Judy leaned forward. Explain. Janine opened her folder and pulled out a ledger. When Brenda became president, we started using Cedar Compliance Services for everything. Minor violations, pressure washing, paint touch-ups. And the costs were insane. Brenda snapped. That's because standards cost money. Janine didn't flinch. No, it's because Brenda padded invoices. She slid papers forward. Judge Judy read silently, eyes moving quickly. Janine continued. We'd get a subcontractor bill for $400, and Cedar Compliance would charge the HOA $1,200. Sometimes more. And the subcontractor was usually just a guy from Brenda's church with a pickup truck. Brenda's face reddened. That is a lie. Judge Judy's voice was calm. Miss Carlisle, if you interrupt this witness again, I'll have you removed. Brenda's mouth snapped shut. Janine looked at Judge Judy. I asked for competitive bids. I asked for open vendor selection. Brenda said bidding was for people who don't understand leadership. Then she told me to stop asking questions. Judge Judy asked, did you stop? Janine swallowed. No, so she tried to push me out. She issued me a violation notice for my trash bins. Said they were visible from the street even though they weren't. Then she fined me. Then she threatened a lien. Jonah's eyes widened. Mrs. Kim tightened her grip on her blanket. Judge Judy's gaze sharpened. So she used the same mechanism on you? Janine nodded. Yes. Asterisk. Judge Judy looked at Brenda. Pattern. Brenda shook her head, whispering, They're all against me. Judge Judy turned back to Janine. Did you ever confront her about Cedar compliance being linked to her? Janine nodded and flipped to an email. I did. I asked for a conflict of interest disclosure. Judge Judy scanned the email, then read aloud. Conflict disclosure is unnecessary. Stop acting like a bureaucrat. Judge Judy looked up. That's her response. Janine continued, voice firm. Then I found transfers. Brenda went still. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. Transfers. Janine slid another page forward. HOA funds were reimbursing Brenda for community expenses that weren't community expenses. Judge Judy read. Her mouth tightened. Janine listed them one by one. Spa package, travel deposit, personal dinner, and a consulting fee paid to Brenda's personal account. Brenda's head snapped up. That's compensation for my time. Judge Judy looked at her. Volunteer board position. Not compensated. That's what volunteer means. Brenda's voice rose, cracking. I worked. Judge Judy's tone remained flat. Working hard doesn't entitle you to steal. Brenda's eyes filled with tears, but the tears didn't soften her face. They made her look angrier. Judge Judy turned to Janine. Did you report this? Janine nodded. I brought it to the full board. Brenda called an emergency closed-door meeting and removed me as treasurer that same night. Then she announced I resigned for personal reasons. Judge Judy's gaze hardened. And did you actually resign? Asterisk. Janine's voice was quiet. Not at first. I fought. Then I got a letter from an attorney paid for by HOA funds telling me to stop defaming Brenda. Ms. Ellis stood. Your Honor, we have that letter. It was billed to the HOA as community legal expense. Judge Judy's head tilted. So HOA funds paid for a lawyer to silence a board member asking questions. Brenda's breathing got faster. They're twisting everything. Judge Judy stared at her. No, Miss Carlyle, you twisted the HOA into a weapon. Janine turned slightly toward Jonah and Lily, then looked back at Judge Judy. And when I saw what she was doing to this family, I couldn't stay quiet. Judge Judy nodded once, acknowledging the courage. Then Judge Judy looked at Brenda. Miss Carlyle, I want to hear your explanation for Cedar compliance being registered to your home address. Brenda shook her head rapidly. It's my husband's. We share an address. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. Do you share profits? Brenda hesitated. Judge Judy waited. Brenda whispered, sometimes. The gallery reacted quiet murmurs. Judge Judy's voice sharpened. Sometimes. Brenda's tears spilled. I didn't think it mattered. Judge Judy leaned forward. You didn't think it mattered that you threatened a disabled child's family with liens while your household profited from enforcement? Brenda sobbed, then snapped. He should have followed the rules. Judge Judy's gaze went ice cold. You keep hiding behind rules because you think rules are armor. But rules are not allowed to become discrimination. Ms. Ellis stood. Your Honor, there is also a voicemail Brenda left on Jonah's phone after the lien was filed. Brenda's head jerked up. No, Judge Judy nodded. Play it. The voicemail filled the courtroom, Brenda's voice, low and satisfied. You can fight me, Jonah, but you'll lose. People always do. Pay Cedar compliance for removal and I'll stop the lien. Otherwise, I'll make sure you can't refinance, can't sell, and can't breathe in that house. Silence. Judge Judy stopped it and looked at Brenda like she was seeing the final piece click into place. That, Judge Judy said quietly, is extortion. Brenda sobbed harder, shaking. I was stressed. Judge Judy replied, stress doesn't write threats. Character does. Then Judge Judy turned to Ms. Ellis. What else? Ms. Ellis hesitated, then spoke carefully. Your Honor, the election. Brenda went rigid. Ms. Ellis continued. Janine provided sign-in sheets and proxy forms from the election where Brenda became president. There are irregularities. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. Irregularities how? Janine swallowed. Several proxy signatures match Brenda's handwriting. Brenda shot up. That is a lie. Judge Judy's voice snapped. Sit down. Brenda froze, then sat, trembling. Judge Judy leaned forward. Do you have proof? Ms. Ellis handed up a report. A preliminary handwriting comparison from a certified examiner. Judge Judy scanned it, then looked up slowly. Ms. Carlisle, she said, did you forge proxy votes to become HOA President? Brenda's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Judge Judy didn't yell. She didn't need to. She simply picked up the gavel, tapped it once, and said, I think we're about to find out. Because the bailiff was already walking in with a sealed envelope from the HOA management company, an envelope marked in bold. Election audit results. And Brenda's face told the whole courtroom one thing. She already knew what was inside. Asterisk. Judge Judy held the envelope for a moment without opening it, letting the tension stretch tight enough to snap. Brenda's breathing was audible now, fast, shallow, panicked. She looked less like a president and more like a person watching her own lies line up in court. Judge Judy finally opened it. She pulled out the audit summary. Read the first paragraph. And her expression shifted, subtle but unmistakable. Not surprise, confirmation. According to this, Judge Judy said, tapping the page. The management company found 13 proxy forms with signatures inconsistent with the homeowner's known signatures. Brenda's voice cracked. That's not, Judge Judy cut her off. And 7 of those 13 proxies were submitted by you. Personally, Brenda's eyes flooded with tears. I didn't forge anything. I collected proxies. People asked me to. Judge Judy leaned forward. Then why did the homeowners state under sworn declaration that they never signed them? Brenda's mouth trembled. They're lying. They hate me. Judge Judy's tone was flat. Everyone hates you, yet you keep getting elected. Funny how that works. Janine's voice was quiet. Because she made sure she did. The courtroom stayed frozen. Judge Judy continued reading. The audit recommends the election be voided and reheld under supervision. Brenda shook her head violently. No, that's my position. Judge Judy looked up. It was never your position if you cheated to get it. Brenda started to sob, wiping her face, mascara smearing. Then she tried to pivot again weakly. This still doesn't change the ramp. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. It changes everything. Because it means your authority to fine him may not have been legitimate in the first place. Jonah exhaled like he'd been punched and freed at the same time. Mrs. Kim closed her eyes, whispering something under her breath. Relief. Maybe prayer. Judge Judy turned to Ms. Ellis. Any other relevant evidence? Ms. Ellis nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Miss Carlisle's own property violations. Brenda's head snapped up. What? Ms. Ellis handed over photos. Brenda's home with a newly built front patio extension, a tall fence that exceeded height limits, and a glossy pergola visible from the street. Judge Judy held the photos up. Miss Carlisle, did you obtain HOA approval for these structures? Brenda hesitated. Yes, Judge Judy's gaze sharpened. Show me. Brenda looked down, fumbled with her binder, hands shaking. I don't have it. Judge Judy's voice was calm. But you have a binder for a child's ramp? Ms. Ellis added. The architectural logs show no application for the pergola or patio expansion. None. Brenda's face went pale again. The committee must have lost it. Judge Judy leaned forward. The committee? You mean you? Brenda started crying harder. I don't keep every paper. Judge Judy replied. You keep the ones you use to hurt people. Then Miss Ellis dropped the next page onto the bench. And Your Honor, she said, there's also a complaint from residents about Miss Carlisle's home being used as a short-term rental. Brenda went rigid. That's irrelevant. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. Is it true? Brenda's voice cracked. No. Ms. Ellis calmly handed over a listing screenshot. This is an online rental listing for Cedar Grove Luxury Getaway. The host name is B. Carlisle. The HOA rules prohibit short-term rentals. Brenda's mouth opened, closed. That could be fake. Judge Judy's voice turned cold. It has photos of your living room, your kitchen, your backyard, and your dog's water bowl. The gallery murmured. Judge Judy looked at Brenda. So you enforce rules on a disabled child, but you break rules for profit? Brenda whispered. I needed money. Judge Judy's response was immediate. Then get a job. Not a racket. Brenda's shoulders shook violently now, no longer pretending. The smugness was gone. The arrogance had collapsed into raw panic. Judge Judy leaned back slightly. Miss Carlisle, I'm going to be very clear. This court can't prosecute criminal charges, but I can refer evidence. Brenda's eyes widened in terror. No, please. Judge Judy didn't blink. I have evidence of potential fraud, potential embezzlement, and potential discriminatory conduct. And now, election tampering. Brenda's breath caught. Janine looked down. As if relieved someone else was finally saying it out loud, Judge Judy turned to Jonah. Mr. Kim, has Miss Carlisle ever threatened you in person? Jonah swallowed. Yes, when? The day Lily's school bus driver asked if we could use the front again, Jonah said. Brenda saw it and came over. She said, if that ramp stays, you'll regret it. Mrs. Kim's voice trembled. She stood in front of my daughter and called her equipment trash. Brenda tried to speak, but her voice died. Judge Judy's eyes hardened. I don't like bullies. Then she glanced down at one final document that hadn't been mentioned yet. She paused. That pause was loud. Miss Alice noticed and stiffened. Janine's eyes widened slightly. Brenda whispered, what is that? Judge Judy looked up, voice calm but heavy. This is a financial disclosure filed in a separate court. Brenda's face crumpled. No, Judge Judy read. Brenda Carlisle. Active bankruptcy proceeding. Chapter 13. The gallery murmured again, louder. Judge Judy looked at Brenda. You're in bankruptcy? Brenda sobbed. Yes, Judge Judy's voice sharpened. And yet you were extracting money from homeowners through fines and funneling vendor payments to your household? Brenda shook her head, crying. I was trying to survive. Judge Judy leaned forward. By pushing a disabled child's family toward foreclosure. Brenda covered her face. Judge Judy's voice dropped, almost conversational, more frightening than shouting. Miss Carlisle, you came into my courtroom expecting to collect $18,000. She tapped the file. Instead, you've given me enough to write a referral letter that will follow you for a long time. Brenda's sobbing turned into broken breathing. Judge Judy straightened the papers, then looked up. I'm ready to rule, she said. Brenda looked up through tears. Terrified, Judge Judy lifted her gavel slightly, and right before she brought it down, she added one sentence, quiet, precise. Unforgettable. And after I rule, we're going to talk about what happens to an HOA president when the court realizes she wasn't elected honestly. Judge Judy's gavel came down once. Clean and final. Judgment for the defendant, she said. Plaintiff takes nothing. Brenda's body jolted like she'd been physically hit. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Judge Judy didn't stop. Mr. Kim, she continued, your daughter's lift and ramp are a reasonable accommodation. You requested approval. You provided documentation. You were denied without proper review. The HOA's enforcement here was improper. Jonah's eyes filled briefly. He nodded, swallowing hard. Mrs. Kim let out a shaky breath she'd been holding for months. Judge Judy turned to the counterclaim. Mr. Kim, you're asking for a reimbursement of HOA fines, correct? Ms. Ellis stood. Yes, Your Honor. Total fines and fees paid, $4,620. Judge Judy nodded. Granted. Miss Carlisle, you will reimburse $4,620. Brenda's voice cracked. I can't. Judge Judy cut her off. You can. And you will. Brenda sobbed, shaking. Judge Judy continued. Additionally, due to harassment, threats, and malicious conduct, I am awarding Mr. Kim $7,500 in damages. The gallery reacted quiet, stunned. Brenda's head snapped up. 7,000? Judge Judy's tone was ice. Yes, because you don't get to weaponize your position against a disabled child and walk away with a lecture. Brenda's crying became frantic. I didn't mean to. Judge Judy leaned forward. You said we will fine you until you can't afford to stay. That wasn't an accident. That was your plan. Brenda covered her face. Judge Judy looked at Ms. Ellis. The lien. Ms. Ellis nodded. Your Honor, we request the lien be released immediately. Judge Judy nodded. Ordered. Any failure to release will be treated as contempt. Then Judge Judy looked directly at Brenda, and because the evidence suggests conflicts of interest, improper vendor steering, possible financial misappropriation, and possible election fraud, Judge Judy said, I am referring this matter along with the recordings and documents to the appropriate authorities. Brenda's hands dropped from her face. No, please. Judge Judy didn't blink. This is not optional. Brenda's voice broke. I'll resign. I'll resign right now. Judge Judy's expression didn't soften. You should. She glanced at the election audit again. This court also finds credible evidence the election was compromised. I am sending a copy of this ruling to the HOA Management Company and the State HOA Oversight Office. Brenda's shoulders shook violently, like she couldn't decide whether to beg or scream. Judge Judy looked at Jonah and Lily, her tone soft and slightly human, but still firm. Mr. Kim, she said, your daughter deserves to come home safely. That's the end of it. Jonah's voice was thick. Thank you. Lily looked up at Judge Judy and gave a small, shy smile. It wasn't a TV moment. It was a child realizing an adult finally listened. Judge Judy then turned back to Brenda for the last time. Miss Carlyle, she said, you came in here acting untouchable. You insulted the court. You treated compassion like weakness. And you tried to turn a disability accommodation into a profit opportunity. Brenda whispered through tears, I'm not a bad person. Judge Judy's reply was calm and devastating. I don't care what you call yourself. I care what you did. Brenda sobbed harder, head bowed. Judge Judy lifted the gavel again. Case closed. The gavel struck, echoing through the room. Jonah carefully rolled Lily's wheelchair back from the table. Mrs. Kim reached for her granddaughter's hand. As they turned to leave, Jonah paused just for a second, then looked back at Brenda Dodd, not with hatred. With exhausted honesty, you didn't just fine us, Jonah said quietly. You made my daughter feel like she was a problem. Brenda flinched like the words hurt more than the judgment. Jonah turned away and left. Brenda stayed seated, shaking, staring at the table like it might tell her how she went from powerful to exposed in under an hour. And Judge Judy, already reaching for the next file, didn't look at her again, because in Judge Judy's courtroom, arrogance doesn't get the last word, evidence does.